This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Susie Guerin. Brought to you in part by
TheStreet.com. Up-to-the-minute stock market news and in-depth analysis. Our quant rating service provides objective, independent ratings daily on over 4,300 stocks. Learn more at TheStreet.com/NBR.
Walmart's new boss, the world's largest retailer, names a new CEO just as holiday shopping takes off. So what does the change at the top mean for shareholders?
Groundbreaking agreement. Oil dips on a nuclear deal with Iran. Will prices fall further? And will drivers start to feel relief when they fill up?
Marriage penalty. Meet a woman who has a husband, a job, and a difficult decision to make about her health care insurance. All that and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Monday, November 25th.
Good evening, everyone. Attention, Walmart shoppers. There's a big management change at the world's largest retailer. Walmart CEO Mike Duke will be stepping down in February. Replacing him, Doug McMillon, a 23-year company veteran who's currently head of the chain's international division. He will be only the fifth chief executive at the company since it was founded by Sam Walton. Now, the news came just days before Black Friday. This is the critical kickoff for holiday sales. But it looks like investors approved of the changes. Walmart shares rose, even touching fresh all-time highs in intraday trading, before settling at $80, nearly 1% higher. As shoppers, workers, and investors prepare to meet the new boss, many are wondering what changes may be in store with the new CEO. Courtney Reagan takes a look.
Mike Duke will be retiring after 5 years as Walmart's CEO and 18 years with the company. During his time at the helm, Duke has dealt with sluggish sales as a result of a recovering economy, as well as allegations of bribery in Mexico and criticism over employee pay and benefits. All three issues are ongoing. Walmart shares have gained 66% during Duke's tenure as CEO. While impressive, it's vastly underperformed the broader S&P Retail Index, which has increased more than 244% over the same time period. Duke is largely regarded for his expertise in distribution, valuable knowledge for someone running the world's largest retailer. While incoming CEO Doug McMillon also has distribution expertise, he's known more as a merchant, with key experience running the company's international segments. Walmart's U.S. segment is its largest by far, but international is where the future growth is.
My initial take was that Doug was certainly an heir apparent. There was another potential heir apparent too in Bill Simon, who runs Walmart U.S.
I think Doug McMillon's been groomed for this position, been CEO in training for some time.
But why announce the CEO transition now, during the company's self-proclaimed busiest week of the year? Because Mike Duke announced his retirement at the company's November board meeting. That's when McMillon was voted on as the successor, nearly mirroring the timing of Lee Scott's retirement and Mike Duke's succession 5 years ago.
Doc McMillon.
McMillon has spent his career at Walmart and is expected to continue to work on polishing the company's public image while reattracting shoppers and their dollars at a time when its core consumer spends with caution and competition heats up with more convenient dollar store rivals and online behemoth Amazon nipping at its tail. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan.
And with us now to talk more about Walmart's management changes and what it all means for the company is J.P. Eggers, professor of management at New York University's School Stern of Business. Professor, welcome back. Why now, and what does Doug McMillon signal for Walmart?
Well, I'll admit the exact timing's a little curious, being the week of Black Friday, but I think in general they're looking for a transition after the holiday season, and which means you need to announce it enough in advance that everyone's ready for the transition. As far as what McMillon's going to bring, I mean, I think this is clearly a doubling down on the business as usual in many ways. He's got broad experience in distribution, but certainly in merchandising, as you were discussing as well, and international, the kind of saying that, look, the existing brick-and-mortar store business and the international business is kind of where they're seeing growth and the need to push in the future.
But, JP, you heard Courtney's report talking about a lot of the issues there, sluggish sales, that bribery scandal in Mexico. What do you think is the most important thing that Doug McMillon is going to have to deal with, and can he fix all of these things?
Well, I mean, to answer the second question first, to some extent, I think he's got the right portfolio of skills. Again, he's been being groomed for a long period of time. They've gotten him into a number of different roles. They've had him in the international. They've had him in Sam's Club. He's been very involved in merchandising and store operations. As far as what they need to do, they really need to manage international growth effectively, because they can kind of very easily kind of figure out how to fix things in the same store sales in the U.S. But figuring out how to kind of open the new stores, get into those new countries, and build out the new systems is a big piece of the plan going forward.
He comes out of the international business there. Is he at all tainted by that Mexican bribery scandal that broke about a year or so ago? And how big a problem is that for him and for Walmart?
So I can't see any real reason why he would be tainted by that. He was running Sam's Club in the U.S. at that point in time, and I can't see any reason why anybody looking in any real detail would say that he would have had any real knowledge. As for the potential implications for Walmart overall, given the importance of international expansion, this is going to be a potential hurdle to overcome in certain places where bribery is seen as kind of not a way of doing business. But the reality is there are many countries around the world where this is not a surprising finding to see this coming to light in some way. And while there'll be big and important questions and certainly some potential monetary fines, it will be something that Walmart should be able to handle going forward, I would expect.
And what about competition? I mean, boy, this retail industry is so competitive. There are a lot of newcomers coming in, like the Amazons of the world, you know, big companies that are trying new things. And then you've got the discounters and all of that. Who do you see as Walmart's biggest competition, and what do they have to do to get ahead of it?
So certainly in the U.S., Target, and you know, potentially these dollar store companies coming from underneath, but then Amazon, I would say Target and Amazon in the U.S. would be by far the two biggest competitors. They have the interesting situation that in many of the foreign countries they're looking at and targeting, there's different competitors in different locations, and so there's not kind of one big clear one. I think in the short term, they're clearly focusing on the brick and mortar sales by kind of focusing in with Macmillan and going that direction, looking at Target, looking at the dollar stores, looking at grocery chains, and saying that the Amazon thing will kind of have to be put off as they continue to try and grow their online presence.
Very quickly, he may be part of Walmart's old guard, but he's a young guy. He could be there 15, 20 years.
There's no question. I mean, it's a very young guy coming into a very senior role. You know, as I said before, they've been grooming him for a while. But this is, I think, certainly the hope would be that this is a very long-term solution. Walmart certainly has looked for long-term as opposed to short-term solutions at the top. So I would expect that they're hoping the same thing in this case.
JP, thank you very much. JP Eggers is professor of management at New York University's Stern School of Business.
Thank you.
Turning to Wall Street, it's now the Nasdaq's turn to boast a milestone. For the first time since the heady days of the dot-com bubble 13 years ago, the Nasdaq topped the 4,000 mark several times in intraday trading before settling just points below that level. Also today, another record high for the Dow. Those blue-chip Dow stocks rose 7 points, the Nasdaq up nearly 3, but the S&P lost 2 points.
Meanwhile, crude prices settled slightly lower after a coalition of Western powers reached a tentative deal to curb, at least temporarily, that nation's nuclear ambitions in exchange for suspending some tough economic sanctions. Oil was modestly lower all session long, with traders still concerned about just how much Iranian oil reserves might hit the energy market and when. Sharon Epperson has our story about the agreement, how much Iranian oil we're talking about, and what it may mean to prices at the pump.
As part of a preliminary deal, the United States has said sanctions against Iran will not be tightened, but will remain in effect over the next 6 months. Sanctions have significantly reduced Iran's oil exports, from 2.5 million barrels per day in 2011 to 1.5 million in 2012 and less than 1 million barrels a day in October. The White House says Iran's oil sales will be limited to 1 million barrels a day as part of the sanctions, but considering the level of exports in October, reaching that level could potentially add more oil to the global marketplace.
What we're talking about is effectively the cap at 1 million barrels per day, which is Iran's much diminished oil volume that they've had under the sanctions. If you now say that 1 million is okay, you're talking about an incremental 285,000.
That's not an insignificant amount. Brent crude prices initially plunged on the news of an Iran deal, down about 3%, but recovered the losses by the end of the day. The International Energy Agency contends that even if some oil sanctions are lifted, it's unlikely that Iran would be able to jump back to pre-sanctions levels immediately. So what's next for oil prices? If global supplies outstrip demand and other factors continue to pressure the market, Brent crude and U.S. oil prices could fall sharply.
I think we could see $85 to $86 in crude oil halfway through next year. With the Fed stopping the purchasing of the bond program and slowing it down, I think we're going to see even a lower level for commodities, especially crude oil.
That should bring more relief to drivers. If oil prices continue to tumble, some analysts say the national average price for gasoline could fall below $3 a gallon next year. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Sharon Epperson.
But prices won't get below $3 a gallon, not just yet. The latest Lundberg survey shows that gasoline prices rose for the first time since September, up 3 cents a gallon over the past 2 weeks, averaging $3.25 nationwide for a gallon of regular.
Officials at Boeing have a lot on their plate right now. The company is now soliciting bids from at least a dozen different locations before it decides where to build its newest jet, the 777X. At the same time, the aircraft maker is warning airlines not to fly a pair of its jet models too close to high-altitude thunderstorms, saying ice could form on the General Electric-made engines, creating a loss of thrust. With that, Boeing was the biggest decliner in the Dow today, falling more than 2%. Phil LeBeau joins us now from Chicago with more. Phil, let's start with that icing problem. Which planes are being singled out, and is there an easy way to fix it?
Well, the people at General Electric believe that they could do a software fix. They pretty much have an idea of what is causing these ice crystals to form, and it's only in select flights and select cases where they believe there's an issue. So what you have is a situation where some airlines have said, listen, we think we could have some high-altitude thunderstorms on a particular route, and as a result, we won't fly the Dreamliner on that route. We'll put a different plane in that route instead. And my sense is, knowing the people at General Electric and doing stories down there with their aircraft engine facility, they're going to figure out some kind of a software fix relatively quickly.
Phil, you just mentioned that this is happening on select routes. Any response from the airline companies on how they feel about all of this?
Well, they're never happy, Susie. They're never happy when they have to take a new plane out of service and substitute a different plane into that route. But having said that, we're not looking at a widespread drop in service for the Dreamliner. Some of the airlines, the Japanese airlines, they've had a few select routes where they've had to change out that plane, but it's nothing that's going to have a huge impact on the bottom line.
Tell me I'm wrong, Phil, but is the Dreamliner star-crossed?
No, I don't think it's star-crossed. I think what you're seeing here are, I know everybody hates hearing the term teething problems, but that's part of what you're seeing here, and it happens with all new airplanes.
All right, let's move to the bidding process for the 777X aircraft. Which states are in the running, and when can we expect a decision?
It's probably easier to say who's not in the running. Look, there are at least 15 different sites around the country, probably about 7 to 10 states that are in consideration, Tyler, and we'll probably hear some kind of an answer from Boeing. It says in the first quarter of next year, most likely, definitely in the first half of next year.
All right, Phil, thank you so much for all that information. Phil LeBeau reporting from Chicago. And still ahead on the program, what does an online retailer, a toy store, and an airline have in common? The answer is hidden in the fine print. That's coming up.
Chrysler says it won't have its initial public stock offering until next year at the earliest. Disputing a published report, Fiat, the majority owner of Chrysler, says that an IPO this year is, quote, not practicable. Sergio Marchionne, the CEO of both automakers, has been squabbling with the United Auto Workers Union Trust that owns more than 41% of Chrysler over just what the company's real market value is.
Holiday shoppers looking for value may want to check out the latest issue of Consumer Reports magazine. It's out with its annual holiday report card for 2013, telling us which retailers are being naughty and which ones are being nice this season. Jackie DeAngelis has more.
Whether they're shopping in stores or online this holiday season, one thing's for sure: consumers have choices. So where will they spend their hard-earned dollars, and which companies will benefit from that purchasing power? With its 4th annual Naughty and Nice list, Consumer Reports says companies who have the best policies and practices, they will rake it in, because things like customer service, return policies, shipping, and fees, they matter. On the Nice list, mega merchant Walmart. They're being praised for eliminating a $5 administrative fee needed to open a buy now, pay later layaway account. High-end retailer Neiman Marcus offering free shipping and returns on most items. Southwest Airlines saying goodbye to those fees for time changes and reservations. Plans could be changed for the simple difference in fare value. But good things don't necessarily have to come in packages.
Citibank made our list this year for their policy of basically forgiveness for late fees. Look, we all ding credit card companies time and again for their punitive practices, and they're not very consumer friendly. But what Citibank has managed to do this year is to basically give you late fee forgiveness.
On the naughty list, the world's 11th largest retailer, Amazon, raising eligibility for free Super Saver shipping from $10 to $35. And Toys R Us suspending its price-matching guarantee during the week of Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Travelers be warned, United Airlines no longer allowing families with infants or kids under 4 to priority board. But it's not just about discounts and savings. It's also about best practices.
Kmart made the naughty list this year. They announced with great glee that they would be open for 41 hours straight, beginning Thanksgiving morning at 6 a.m., going through 11 p.m. Black Friday night. That's a long time, and I feel kind of sorry for the employees that have to put in that time.
The marketplace is crowded. The offers and restrictions are far and wide. It will be interesting to see if the nice beat out the naughty this holiday season when it comes to the bottom line. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Jackie DeAngelis.
Goldman Sachs upgraded Alcoa to a buy, sending shares of the aluminum maker higher, and that is where we begin tonight's market focus. The analyst there at Goldman said Alcoa's aluminum business is underappreciated and noted its improving cost structure as reasons why the stock got a bump up to buy from neutral. Shares up almost 4% today to $9.59. Bank of America Merrill Lynch upgrading shares of Caterpillar to buy from neutral. The analyst says Cat's power systems business is going to support earnings for 2014 despite weakness in mining and construction. That sent shares of the Dow component up almost 2% to $84.40. Microsoft said it sold more than 1 million Xbox One consoles on the device's first day on the market. That sales figure matched Sony's first day sales of its PlayStation 4 device, which hit shelves a week earlier and was $100 cheaper. Shares of Microsoft slightly higher, $37.64 the close there. The talk show host Katie Couric is joining Yahoo as the tech company's global news anchor. The move is an attempt by Yahoo to expand its audience, sell more advertising. Shares of Yahoo initially popped to multi-year highs on the news, but they did end the day just a little bit lower at $36.29.
BlackBerry announced more shakeups to its management team. Its chief operating, chief financial, and chief marketing officers are leaving the struggling smartphone company. The news comes just weeks after the CEO was replaced and the company took itself off the market. The stock rose slightly to $6.25. Shares of the drug maker Orexigen Therapeutics surged today after it reported good news about its weight loss treatment. The company says that its drug, Contrave, performed well in its latest study and didn't increase a patient's heart attack risk. Orexigen plans to resubmit the treatment for regulatory approval in coming weeks. The stock climbed more than 9% to $6.21. News that the U.S. government won't cut Medicaid and Medicare as much as expected this year sent shares of DaVita Healthcare and Fresenius Medical Care higher. Both companies provide kidney dialysis, and Medicare covers most payments for those treatments. DaVita shares were up almost 9% to $61 and change. Fresenius shares jumped 7% to $34.54. And the Food and Drug Administration has done a U-turn regarding a diabetes drug that once had sales of $3 billion a year. The FDA has removed some restrictions on the GlaxoSmithKline medication Avandia, saying it no longer has serious concerns over the drug's heart attack risk. This means more doctors can prescribe Avandia to more patients. Shares fell 1% to $52.82.
More concerns about the Affordable Care Act, and this time it's about just how affordable coverage can be. When it comes to paying taxes, the so-called marriage penalty can mean that some couples pay higher rates than they would if they filed singly. With the Affordable Care Act, some couples are finding that new insurance rules come with their own version of a marriage penalty. Bertha Coombs has that story.
Eileen Markowski is finding being married and working is leaving her with tough options for health insurance next year.
I'm losing my health care coverage. The company that my husband works for has implemented spousal carve-out. So because I am offered health care through the part-time job that I have, I'm no longer covered under my husband's plan.
Her husband's firm isn't alone. According to a Mercer survey, 7% of large companies such as UPS are denying spouses coverage next year if they can get insurance elsewhere, in part to keep plan costs down under the Affordable Care Act. The problem for Eileen is that insurance where she works part-time will cost more than her take-home pay.
If I were not working at this small part-time job, then I would be covered through my husband's health care. However, because of the opportunities for advancement where I'm working, I don't want to quit.
She's working with a broker to explore options on New York's health exchange. Just one plan would let her keep her doctor, but it's costly.
So most likely we're going to end up going with an Empire plan instead of...
Right, because she's not on the Oxford.
Lower premium plans have high out-of-pocket costs.
On this first one here, you're going to have an individual deductible of $4,000.
Which combined with monthly payments would double her insurance costs.
And you get to pay $8,058.
And that's $400 less than we're paying for Joe and I both now.
Really?
Yes. And we have great coverage right now.
Eileen's income would qualify her for a subsidy if she were single, but under the Affordable Care Act, married couples can only qualify for subsidies based on their combined income. And together, the Markowskis earn too much. And while they have a small business on the side, there's also a marriage penalty of sorts when it comes to small business plans, which is impacting her own broker's insurance options.
I have a company that is owned by myself and my wife. And according to the Affordable Care Act, we are no longer considered eligible for group coverage. So we are being forced into the individual exchange.
President Obama's oft-repeated pledge about keeping your coverage.
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period.
Is ringing hollow for Eileen. She's now thinking of giving up her job in order to keep her doctor and her plan.
I love what I do, and I love working for that company. And I can see the potential, and there are people that are working with me to get promoted, to get into a better position, and now I'm hit with this.
Bertha Coombs, Nightly Business Report.
Coming up, millions of Americans may be hitting the road this Thanksgiving weekend, but that number is down sharply since the Great Recession, leaving some private toll road investors paying the price.
As millions of Americans get ready to hit the road for the Thanksgiving Day holiday, the number is far fewer than just a few years ago. And that means that big drop means profits have proved elusive for many investors who put money into privately funded toll roads and bridges used by the public. Hampton Pearson has more.
43 million Americans will be hitting the road over the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday weekend, according to AAA. That's down from last year and continues the dramatic drop in driving overall since the recession.
For Thanksgiving in 2007, more than 50 million people traveled. By 2008, when the recession had taken hold firmly, that number dropped down to 38 million. 12 million people said, skip it, I'm not traveling, probably for the most important holiday of the year, and it really comes down to money.
Nationwide, total miles driven peaked at around 3 trillion back in 2007. It's dropped at least 5% since then. It's a direct hit on the bottom line revenue tied to the estimated $27 billion global investors poured into private toll road deals all over the U.S. in the last decade. 42 states and the District of Columbia have the authority to charge tolls, and 33 states have authorized public-private partnerships. That's according to the National Conference of State Legislatures.
Any private investor in a toll road is first going to look and make sure that there's a sufficient demand on that road. So crucial there is getting accurate revenue and usage projections. And if they see that they can make a profit, then they're by all means going to engage with that state and set up a toll road or a bridge.
Two success stories in the Washington, D.C. area. The privately owned Dulles Greenway is generating enough revenue to make payments on its billion-dollar debt. And there are now hot lanes on the Capitol Beltway, where drivers pay more to travel at a speedier pace with the tolls collected electronically. Out in Oregon, they're experimenting with taxing vehicle miles traveled using GPS or an electronic odometer.
The idea is to closely match the use of the roadway system with what users are paying for it. Right now, we really don't do that very well.
The bottom line, traffic congestion and the need to pay for improved roads will pave the way for innovative public and private solutions. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Hampton Pearson in Washington.
And that's Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Susie Garib. Thanks so much for joining us.
And thanks from me as well. I'm Tyler Mathisen. Have a great evening, everybody, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow night.
Nightly Business Report has been brought to you in part by
TheStreet.com. Up-to-the-minute stock market news and in-depth analysis. Our quant rating service provides objective, independent ratings daily on over 4,300 stocks. Learn more at TheStreet.com/NBR.
I'm Susie Garib with a Nightly Business Report news brief. A big management change at Walmart today. CEO Mike Duke will be stepping down in February and will be replaced by longtime company insider Doug McMillon. This comes just days before Black Friday, the critical kickoff for holiday sales. On Wall Street, the Nasdaq topped the 4,000 mark for a brief time, and the Dow hit another record high. The blue chips rose 7 points, the Nasdaq up nearly 3, but the S&P lost 2 points. Oil closed slightly lower after a tentative deal that could allow Iran to sell its oil again. But gasoline prices rose for the first time since September. And the U.S. government made more than $41 billion in profit from student loans last year, more than any company except for ExxonMobil and Apple. Be sure to tune into Nightly Business Report right here on your public television station.